This is by far the most important building on the Rock of Cashel. It's also closed at the moment to the public. It's closed because of conservation project work. It's actually, the project is finishing up. It's one of the top 10 conservation projects in the world. It's been ongoing since 1987. And Cormac's Chapel is quite possibly the most important building in Ireland, because there is nothing quite like this building anywhere in the world. It dates to 1127. It took 7 years to complete. It was finished by 1134. It was the brainchild of a man called Cormac McCarthy. He was both king and bishop of Cashel. He combined both offices. And unfortunately for him, he didn't live long enough to enjoy either his offices or his chapel, because he was stabbed to death by his own brother in 1137. Now, it is the finest example of Hiberno-Romanesque architecture anywhere. And when I say Hiberno-Romanesque, I mean that it's a unique mixture of the native Irish solid stone-roofed church together with the rounded arch of the Romanesque. This is a very different building from the Gothic cathedral. Its walls are thick. Everything about this building is low, it's solid, it's muscular, and they couldn't have windows. You can imagine, with a roof that weighs 40 tons, it's solid stone and 7 feet in thickness at its apex, the weight of the roof would have caused the walls to explode. So instead they used a German feature called blind arcading. Looks like blocked up windows, but at no stage were these ever used or functioned as windows. Now, it's sandstone, very, very different stone from the rest of the buildings. The other buildings are built from limestone. And sandstone was a particularly bad choice of stone for the Irish climate. We don't have weather like this every day. Yeah, and what has happened is, over the centuries, rainwater has penetrated the skin of the roof. And the rainwater has been dragged by gravity right down through the fabric of the building, causing Cormac's Chapel to become waterlogged. So in 1987, the state uncovered the frescoes. And then in 2008, the state erected a scaffold. And that scaffolding went right over to the boundary wall, cut right through the cathedral where we were standing. It was held down with 3,500 concrete blocks because of the graveyard. They weren't allowed drilled to secure the scaffolding. 3 temporary roofs went over the chapel. And during the time that the scaffolding was up, it only came down last year, they dried the chapel out. They took over 100,000 litres of water out of that building. Wow. You have no idea what it had been like in there. You'd walk in, the smell of mould would assault you. There was black mould all over the interior. The frescoes were hidden under 27 coats of damp whitewash, and there was water streaming down the walls. So it was dried out, and while the scaffolding was up, they discovered that 20% of the roof was rotten, so the entire roof had to be removed, stone by stone. It was rebuilt using old and new sandstone, and for the first time in its history, it was mortared up. And there are special membranes gone into that roof as well. So Cormac's Chapel is now more or less waterproof for the next 200 to 300 years. So if you come back about next July or next month, actually we have July. Yeah, the big launch is on Tuesday. The chapel, that's when they're saying that the conservation project is ended. And there are plans to open this chapel for 15 minutes every day, or every hour. Guided tour only. We don't know when that's going to happen, because you can imagine for yourselves, this chapel wasn't built for 400,000 visitors, and that's what we get each year up here. And people don't realise they go in there with perfectly dry clothing, breathing normally. Their breath will leave almost half a teacup full of water in the walls of that building. So visitors have to be monitored going in there, because the microclimate in that chapel is very, very delicate.